We can just cut it, right?
Yeah.
Club 400 podcast is on the air with two guys that, man, I've been waiting to do this episode for a long time. As you know, on July 18th, Club 400 Lager will be out there at our event with Wilson Contreras. And today we have Crystal Lake Brewery in the house. Let's give it up for my main man, Jesse Abel and Ryan Clooney. Thanks for coming out to Club 400 today. And they brought beer, William. Does
it get better than this? Podcasting and beer?
No, this is what it's all about.
We should throw some JMO in there. It'll be,
we did do a shot already, and but I can't tell you what it means to me to, first of all, Crystal Lake Brewery has been with us since day one, since we started doing these events back in the day, and it's been an awesome partnership. But little did I know that one day we would collaborate together for a Club 400 beer. We'll get into the Club 400 beer lager in a little bit. But first of all, Jesse, tell us about basically a little bit of the history of Crystal Lake Brewery.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thank you for having us. Truly appreciate it. It's been a great kind of experience for us to grow with you guys. The first time we came out here, it was like you called me up and, hey man, I'm doing an event in my basement. Can you guys come and pour some beer? And I was just like, yeah.
That sounds odd.
And then I said, that's a first. And I walked in and I was like, aha! Now I understand why we're here. So really appreciate you having us out. And it's been a blast ever since. Crystal Lake Brewing started in, actually we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary in August, and we started in 2014. 2 Crystal Lake locals, Chuck Ross, John O'Fallon. They were just, a couple of, that wasn't a sound effect, that actually
Every day is opening day.
And I feel so much better now. They were doing what dudes do, and they said, hey, John was a home brewer and Chuck sold stainless steel, and they said we should start a brewery, and then they sobered up and actually wrote a business plan and bought a place at 150 North Main Street right in downtown Crystal Lake.
Awesome location, by the way.
Appreciate it. And originally in their business plan, and I love telling this story, that John was going to do the brewing, and John is a really solid home brewer, but making 10 gallons of beer for your buddies to drink in your garage is one thing. 5 gallons. 5 gallons. You're right. Is one thing, but doing 500 gallons the same way over and over again is a totally different operation. So wisely, and to their great credit, they Forrest Gump their way into Ryan, and he was brought on as a partner. So, and we've been getting after it ever since. Ryan makes phenomenal beer and really, really consistent beer, which is important. And we've grown by leaps and bounds. The majority of the beer that we make has been sold within McHenry County. People around here like to drink, apparently, and so let Brian kind of give you the once over as far as what he's all about.
Let me ask you one quick question, Jesse, because is a brewery only as good as the brewmaster? Would that be a correct statement?
Yeah, absolutely. So. I do all like the salesy type stuff. It's very exciting. And I used to work for a distributor for a while, and selling stuff that is not really what, in your opinion, is good, for lack of a better term. That's a very technical term. It's soul crushing and it's tough. So for me to be able to walk into a place and go, I know the beer is going to be solid, whether it's when I'm taking it out of the cooler and sampling it, or when they show up, it's really, really important. A lot of people make good beer, often or occasionally. There are way fewer places that make properly executed beer every time, and that's huge because people are so educated right now in terms of what they're drinking and what they're buying, that you can kind of get by maybe once or twice with a bad batch, but there's so many options out there. If your beer sucks, people are not going to continue to pick it up off the shelf.
Right. Now let's introduce the Brewmaster of CLB. Ryan, tell me how you got involved. I mean, first of all, how does it feel to have Brewmaster in front of your name? And how did you get into Brewmaster? I mean, how did you get started in this?
It was interesting. Well, having Brewmaster in front of your name is still something I'm not comfortable with, and I don't even know that I deserve it. It's a title that another company that I worked with and for gave me after many years of brewing and winning awards and training other brewers. So I kind of took it as a nice pat on the back, but it's an odd title. You know, being the master of something is pretty strange. And I don't think I'm a master of brewing. So.
After trying the Club 400 Lager, I definitely think he's the master.
Now we're getting somewhere. That might be my swan song. I think I'm going to hang it up after that beer and just go away because I think it's knocked out of the park.
Well, tell us how this became. Obviously, it was probably a hobby that turned into now a full-time gig.
Yeah, so I was a union carpenter, and we actually did work. It wasn't like everybody says unions don't do work. We worked our butts off. And started homebrewing. I read an article in the Tribune, must have been like 94, 95, about homebrewing. And it wound up, I lived in Wildwood, which is the town next door to Grays Lake, and there was a homebrew shop in Grays Lake. So I went there and checked it out, and my wife, unbeknownst to me, bought me a homebrew kit, and I brewed my first batch of beer on January 1st of 95. And 96, sorry. And it was the best beer I ever had. Still to this day, I think it was the greatest beer ever. I'm sure it was like drinking syrup. I can picture the beer, and I know what it tasted like and smelled like, but to me it was the greatest beer of all time. And it was an amber ale, and it was really, really sweet. But it was clean, and it was good, and I met my marks, and so I brewed that first beer, and I just kind of took it and ran. I couldn't get enough of it. I worked all day, and during work, on break and lunch, I would read books and magazines about brewing, and I started trying to write a little business plan back then even, and I brewed every weekend, Saturday and Sundays. I had 7 taps in my house.
Wow.
So I was a rabid.
That's more than us here.
He's a master.
Yeah, so it was funny. I would come home from work, and my garage door would be open, and the neighbors and my buddies would all be in my garage partying, and I would be at work and come home to that every day.
So tell me about the day you decided, like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to just make beer for a living,
It was pretty good. It was, I went to Siebel, which is the greatest brewing school in the world, in my opinion. They're out of Chicago, thankfully. And it's the oldest brewing school in America. And I went there and they had a 2-week overview course, and then they had a kind of a production engineering course. So I worked in a brewery for a year. I'm sorry, that would have been real nice. I worked for a brewery for a week and did the 2-week course, overview course, and then I got my resume out there and finally got hired. And the rest kind of just snowballed. I lost my train of thought.
Stu, didn't you take a course on drinking beer?
Oh, I majored in that. Yeah, definitely did. I mean, I asked Ryan a question. Well, I spent some time at the brewery. Obviously, I got to help him, with the batch of beer that's coming out on the 18th. But I asked him a question, and I'm going to ask it again, just for the audience. But when you put together your recipes for beer, I mean, you're the brewmaster. You're the one who comes, and people give you an idea of what they want, and you put it together. I asked him, do you kind of know how it's going to taste when it's all said and done? And your answer was,
yeah. So I like to think of it backwards. So when we talked about the beer, the Club 400 beer, we talked about what we wanted and didn't want. And in my mind, I had an idea of what I was personally thinking. And then talking to you, I kind of understood what you were thinking. And so in my mind, I worked backwards. So I know I want this beer to be a lager, first of all. We knew that had to be. And we wanted that clean, crisp drinkability. And then we wanted it to be light and crushable. We wanted it to be something for the masses when you're out here partying, or you're at the ball game, or you're at a barbecue, whatever it was. I knew that we wanted it to be absolutely crushable and approachable. And so in my mind, I had what I thought the taste profile was going to be, and I knew it was kind of an American domestic style. And then I kind of built the recipe backwards from there.
Do you have any recall of what was on Stu's list of things he didn't want? Because I've never seen a beer he didn't like. Ever.
He was kind of for everything, but he was really going for the lighter beer, the crisp and summer refreshing. That kind of
because
stuff.
of the diet. So
Joe Rodriguez,
and
Joe Rodriguez is in the house right now, and I think me and Joe kind of had the same thought processes. Let's do like an old style Coors Light type beer, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, something smooth. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But going back to Crystal Lake Brewery itself, tell us about your basically the types of beers that you're known for and the beer that you're most proud of.
Well, I think we're known mostly for our Beach Blonde. That's the beer that a couple of years back was the won a bronze medal in the World Beer Cup, which is
and that's a big deal. I mean,
it's a huge
deal. When you found out you won that award, what did that mean to you? As someone's been doing this,
it was awesome.
It meant there's going to be a big party. Probably.
Yeah, we never did have a big party.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah, I think it's still in
Jesse
the books.
forgot to do that.
Yeah, my buddy Jesse didn't do anything for me on that. I think he kind of shook my hand and said thanks for.
No wonder you're leery about the title.
Yeah,
Brewmaster. I mean, you're not getting any
perks.
support.
No, there's nothing. Yeah,
You got
now I'm all pissed off.
Hey, Jesse, I will volunteer that we have a party.
July 19th.
Yeah, July 19th
Right.
for Bleach Blonde.
There we go.
Real quick.
In Ryan's name, okay?
I love it.
We'll move Wilson Contreras to the side.
Yeah,
Okay?
celebrate the beer.
Yeah.
When's the last time he won the bronze medal?
That's right. So the Beach Blonde is definitely our flagship, and it's a German style lager. It's a Helles lager. Helles in German means light, so it's a nice light drinking, easy drinking lager beer. And that's lager beer is the #1 consumed beer in the world. We're drinking High Life right now, and that is a delicious lager beer. So the other beers kind of fall into line. We try to scratch itches, you know, and I consider myself a traditional brewer, so we make beers more traditional. We don't do any type of, all these lactose and milkshake and all the different IPAs.
And he does not do fruit beers.
And love
No,
it.
I only did the one.
Well, you did the raspberry.
Yes,
yeah,
that's
but that
it.
was the only one he's
I
ever
did it
done.
under protest.
Thank God I did not ask for like a watermelon beer or something
No.
like that. He would have not talked to me anymore. He
That
probably
would
would
have been it.
be here.
I
right
might
now.
not have either.
Pumpkin beer,
Watermelon
we would have
beer.
been out.
Yeah,
Throw
we've
out
been
pumpkin beers, like, all right, we're good, thank you.
So I wanted to bring this up since this is a Cubs-based podcast. Lucky Door Bar, located in the main building over there, has a beer that you made just for them, right?
Yeah, so I don't know. Thank God that Nilo lived out in Crystal Lake and grew up there because
Is that I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nilo, he's the manager there.
Yeah.
and he's a great guy. You can't.
yeah,
When you see him, you know he's Nilo. Basically, you know.
he's a great dude. And he grew up out in Crystal Lake, and he talked to Jesse, and he came to our was it Oktoberfest?
Yeah, he came to Oktoberfest, and then he hit us up just via email. Hey, I have a bar in Wrigleyville. Can we get 1 6-barrel of your barrel-aged beer? And I had no idea. You know, I was like, yeah, man, anybody in Wrigleyville who wants our beer, I'm all for it. And then I went down there, and I was just like, you said Wrigleyville, like, you're attached to the offices, man. Kind of a big deal. He's like, oh, yeah. I kind of forgot to mention that. He's one of the nicest guys on the planet. So
That's great.
Yeah, so when you're in the Wrigleyville area, stop by a Lucky Door and grab a Ope.
Yeah.
Now, Ope.
Oh.
Now tell us about the name of that beer.
Is it?
Josh.
Yeah, so when they came
It
to
was
do
great.
we did a collab beer with them last year, and it was called Hometown Debut. And this year, it was a Midwest IPA, so kind of a low bitterness, high hop aroma and flavor beer. And when we were during the brew day, you know, it's kind of up to the guests for the brew day to figure out what the name is and whatnot. So after maybe a couple of beverages. One of their guys was like, what's the most Midwest thing that I could think of? And first somebody said ranch. And we were like, I don't know if ranch is really going to do it, you know. And then what if one of the other guys goes, what about Ope? And we were like, what? I don't understand what that means. He's like, you know, when you bump into somebody and you go, oh. And that was pretty
Not
much
sure
it.
I've
I
heard
mean,
that,
was,
but I like it.
that was pretty much a lock at that
Stamp
point.
it and send it out the way.
So
It was done.
it was funny when we went down to do their staff training for that beer. Ryan and I took the train down, and we got off the train to Union Station, and unbeknownst, like we probably said the word 14 times getting from the train because we kept bumping into
It was
people.
rush hour.
It was like, oh, God. So.
It's also amazing how many times you hear other people say it.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, you be just walking, you run into somebody, and you're like, all of a sudden, like, oh.
I think there's an obvious shirt that could be made with that
Yeah,
on there.
exactly.
Now you're thinking.
I like it.
One of the things when I was at the when we were making the Club Owner beer was
Yeah, I want to talk about Brew Day.
Brew Day.
Saw some good photos. I wish you would have invited me.
Well, you were invited, but you're too chicken shit to take off work. But that's besides the point.
Wow.
Oh, you can
Should we
swear.
go?
You
I
can
mean,
swear.
we can
I didn't
go.
know we could swear on this podcast.
Oh,
Yeah, you can.
ball
We
game.
just kicked the
That's
door
right.
open.
We just went blue.
This is about beer.
Although
okay?
we have to keep it down, the swears to
Mom
minimum
is in the
because
corner
mom's
over
in the
there.
house
Yeah.
here, so we don't want to say really bad things.
But I want to talk about something that sets you different from a lot of breweries, and tell us about the water system, because obviously this is the heart of the beer, and you guys went above and beyond what most breweries do there.
Yeah, so that was important to me personally when we were designing and building the brewery. John and Chuck had already purchased the brew house, so when I came in, I had some other duties that I could do and have an impact on the brewery. And the biggest thing that I could do was get that reverse osmosis water system. So that's it's just a system that strips out everything in the water and basically gives you pure H2O. So the water in Crystal Lake is delicious, and I'm sure it would be fine to brew with, but it kind of limits you or hamstrings you into what you can brew. So with an RO system, it strips that water down to nothing, and it allows us to build the water back to whatever country of origin beer we're brewing. So, for example, our Beach Blonde is a German-style Helles. So you can go online and you can find Munich, Germany's water profile, and then I take that, and thank God John's a computer genius. He put it into some program and told me with what we have with this pure H2O, basically, what I needed to add back as far as salts and minerals, chalk and
to get to what it's
Epsom
like
and
there.
yeah,
Wow.
magnesium, things like that.
That's unbelievable.
And then we get it. So we always joke, and it's actually true, it's the closest you can get to drinking a German lager without getting on a plane and going to Germany. And it's fresh. So, and that, I think, is an advantage, and even if it's not considered an advantage, it's a positive. So you get, in my mind, I'm giving you the best representation of the style that I can produce. So when you drink the Beach Blonde, that's what a German Helles tastes like. If you drink a English brown ale, that's what an English brown ale would taste like in England. That's what I try to do, is try to stick to the rules, basically.
Gotcha. And where do you guys get your hops from?
So that's one of the coolest things that I get to do is fly out to Yakima, Washington, which is where the majority of our hops come from. All our American hops come from Yakima, Washington, and actually we get some from upper Michigan, or mid-state Michigan. And the rest come from overseas in Germany. So every year harvest season comes in September, usually the second week of September or so, and we get to fly out to Washington State and drive to Yakima, Washington, and kind of go through. We get to tour the fields and the hop plants and the pelletizing plants and all that. But the main reason we go there is we get X amount of lots of, say, Cascade hops, and they'll bring in 4 or 5 different varieties, or not varieties, but different plots of land of Cascade hops, and then we sensory evaluate them and decide which one we like best. And then that one's kind of sequestered, and it's for us only. So it's pretty spectacular. And that's something that I thought I'd never get to do, but we get to do it every year. So we're picking the hops, we're rubbing them. You rub hops in between your hands to warm them up, and then you smell them. And it gives you kind of all the aroma and essence of the hop. So we get to go out there and get our hands dirty and yellow, and pick the hops that we're going to use all year. And it's pretty spectacular.
So walk us through the process from, what was the day called? Brew Day?
Brew dates, yeah.
Brew Day.
Well, is that what you call it, brew dates?
Yeah, we call it Brew Day.
So kind of a little overview of what happens there. I saw
Yeah,
some
for
pictures.
the person who really doesn't understand,
Who just drinks the beer.
who just drinks beer,
Doesn't know the
the
history
50
of it.
cent explanation of start to finish.
Okay, this will be fast because I'm the world's fastest tour guide when it comes to breweries.
Which is great because
Yeah, something to see.
then people can get right to the beer.
That's what I
Yeah.
want. I'm not. They don't want to
Good
listen to me
strategy.
drying them up. So it starts with we crack the grain. So we expose the starch in the grain. That cracked grain goes into the mash tun, which is just a vessel that holds hot water. That hot water converts the starch in the grain to simple fermentable sugars. We separate that liquid, it's called wort, into the kettle. We bring that up to a boil. We add hops in the boil, so we're basically making a very diluted syrup with the grain and the water. We have to balance out, it's super sweet and sticky, so we have to balance that sweetness out with something, and we use hops. So hops are the spice of beer. They have bitterness, flavor, and aroma characteristics that they add to the beer. So we'll add hops into the boil, then we'll separate that again. We'll put all that beer into a whirlpool tank, which kind of separates out the hops from the liquid, and then we'll run that boiling hot liquid through a heat exchanger, which converts the hot liquid or wort to cold wort. It gets pumped into the fermenter. As it's going into the fermenter, we add our yeast. It goes through a lag stage of about 2 hours where it's kind of absorbing and uptaking oxygen, and then it goes right into primary fermentation. So primary fermentation, if you ever watched Mutual of Omaha when you were a kid, there was that.
No.
You did too. You're my age. You watched it. You know you did.
I did. All right.
So you had that poor water buffalo that wandered into the river with the piranhas, and the piranhas ate that thing to the bones. That's what yeast does to any available sugar source. So it's a party. They go in and they devour all the sugar they can as fast as they can, and then they reproduce like crazy. It's basically an orgy.
So, a beer orgy. Yeah.
And he tried to say he wasn't a master.
Yeah, right. So that fermentation, once that starts, the yeast is creating alcohol and CO2. So once we have alcohol and CO2, we have beer. It's not wort anymore. So fermentation for an ale takes about 7 days, and that beer we can turn around in 2 weeks. The Club 400 beer that we did is a lager. The word lager means to store. So we need to store that beer, or age that beer to kind of round it out. So lagers are traditionally kind of cleaner. They don't hide any flaws. They're crisp, quenching, that kind of stuff. So the
Delicious.
Club 400 beer, delicious, absolutely. Club 400 beer, we brewed the same way. Process was the same. It goes into the fermenter. We add lager yeast, and that lager yeast is much slower. So ales ferment about 69 degrees. Lagers ferment about 50 degrees. So the metabolism of the yeast is much slower, and they produce a much cleaner beer. So the warmer it gets, the more kind of weird stuff yeast will produce. The colder it gets, the cleaner and more well-rounded the beer would be.
What about? I mean, IPAs are pretty popular right now. How long does that take from start to finish?
So that's a 2-weeker.
That's a 2-weeker too.
Yeah, so that's good and those are funny. IPAs are. I mean, it's probably it's one of my top 5 favorite styles for sure. But they are. IPAs and ales in general hide a lot of flaws. So you have a giant amount of hops in the beer that's giving it huge tropical or citrus or flowery, fruity, spicy, whatever characteristics. If the beer isn't perfect, those hops hide it. With a beer like a lager, that they're not heavily hopped, there's really nowhere to hide. So the beer it has to be brewed right in order to be a good beer. And that really tests the brewer's knowledge and kind of patience and skill level, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we tell people that a lot. You know, a lot of people ask us like, "Well, what's the most popular beer you have?" Okay, it's Beach Blonde, and we tell people, you know, it's by far the most approachable beer. Club 400, super approachable beer, but from a technical brewing standpoint, it is the toughest beer we make. And people are just like, "What? I don't understand." And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. And it's a tough thing.
Well, I asked Ryan. I said, Ryan, when we walked out of our initial tasting, I said, "Hey, buddy, I'm just getting to know Ryan, but I was like, I'm sorry to dumb you down because they got all these amazing beers there, and we're making a light beer." And he said, "Are you kidding me? I'm going to drink this beer all the time." So
What does approachable beer mean?
Well, I mean, for me, for us, approachable beer means, we want, our whole tagline is easy to drink and hard to put down. We definitely don't have the mentality of you are not cool enough to drink our beer. We want people to drink. I know it's weird, but we want people to drink our beer. And approachable.
Why is that weird?
Well, you'd be surprised.
It's good.
Some people have the opposite thought. For us, approachable basically means somebody that might be just dipping their toe into the craft beer movement. You know what I mean? Hey, I've been drinking the same domestic beer my entire life, the same one that my dad did. Maybe let me give this one a shot. Let me
By the way, both these guys are drinking High Life right now.
Yeah.
That's true.
And you're drinking Special Export Light. I'm just kidding.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's
What,
good.
am I invisible?
I thought it was odd that there was a Cobra 40. Whatever, that's fine.
Whatever you choose.
Yeah, we're not. There's no judgment, judgment free. But yeah, I mean, it's basically just something that will help bring somebody in and say, hey, you know what? A small brewery like us, we make beer that is properly executed, that you can enjoy, and it's not going to be a huge jump from what you've normally been drinking to something like what we make, like the Club 400 or the Beach Blonde or the Fox Rocker or something like that.
All right. You guys doing any barrel aging beer over there? Do you guys get involved with that?
We do, yeah. So that's something we started out with right away, and it was funny when we opened up CLB in 2014. I told that one of the first beers we brewed was an imperial stout and barley wine, and we put it in the barrels immediately. And I told John and Chuck, this is kind of that beer. It's a beer drinker's beer, so a craft beer drinker's beer in particular, and it's something that is actually, after it's all said and done, it's not a huge money maker, but it's just something that we want to do to kind of show that we can make these high alcohol, 10.5%, 11% beers, aged in wood for a year, and get them out there. So it was important to me to do. John and Chuck backed it immediately, and then Jesse's on it like flies on a rib roast, selling it. So it's something that we've gotten some accolades for, which was surprising to me, not because I didn't think the beer was good, but we're out in the kind of the sticks in Crystal Lake a little bit, and we had it. People
All
took
the cool
notice
kids live out this way.
Darn
Come
right
on,
they do.
let's be honest.
Yeah. So we got some acknowledgement from some heavy hitters that the beer we were producing and barrel aging was legitimate, and that was pretty awesome.
That is great. What's a couple of names of the beers that you barrel aged?
So we do a Boathouse series, and there's the barrel aged or Boathouse series rye barrel aged imperial stout or bourbon barrel aged imperial stout, and then we do a bourbon barrel aged barley wine.
Okay.
And you just came out with the wine barrel aged beer, right?
Yeah. So for the first time we did a wild fermentation. So we had a saison that I love selfishly, and then we put it into red wine barrels and inoculated it with the bacteria. Brettanomyces is what it's called, and it turns the beer. So in like wine, it would be death. If you had Brettanomyces in your wine, you would hate it. In beer, it's unbelievable. So it adds a huge spectrum of flavors, but it's barnyard, horse blanket, lemongrass, leather, things like that don't sound necessarily appealing. But when you put that bright, fruity saison beer in there with the wine and the wood, it is magic. And it's one of my favorite beers that we've made.
What do you think about those combinations? I know you like chicken wing with your beer, but
I'm a white trash beer drinker. For the most part.
For the most part.
Well, I'll tell you what, I actually have got into craft brews. I mean, a lot. Like, my secret game now is if I get to a Cubs game late and I haven't pre-gamed at all, I'll have a couple oaks before I go in there, get the party started.
That'll get you right on the road.
Get the party started. Well, let's talk about Club 400 beer.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're excited to have it, and we've tried it. We had it at the party on May 2nd with Ben's Oberst, and it was a major hit. People loved it, and I can't tell you what it means to me that we're gonna see these puppies arrive in cans, and I hired an extra photographer just for the event to shoot people drinking Club 400 beer that we could use.
Get some B-roll,
Yeah, get
you
some
know,
pictures,
send it to
yeah.
these guys.
Yeah, so I'm very excited.
Pretty soon
about
it's going to be the official beer of the Chicago Cubs.
That would be
Yeah.
From your lips to
Yeah.
God's ears, Mike.
Hello, everybody.
We'll get Tom Ricketts on speed dial, you know, and tell them, hey, we got to get it in there.
If anybody does, you do have
Yeah,
it.
you have that.
I think.
I mean, this is probably a question we should wait till the end, but what's going to happen when you run out after like a week? If that.
I'm gonna.
He's got a list of pre-sales that's
I'm
like
gonna
crazy.
hug Stu and thank him, and then I'm gonna get my ass into the brewery.
All right,
and
okay, that's what I want to hear. Because if I fall in love with this, which I already did,
When
You
you
will.
fall.
I mean, I don't want to, not have some.
We've kind of had to keep people at bay a little bit because we've had folks calling or hitting us up directly, and I'm like, Stu gets dibs. I don't know what to tell you. Like, we need to get him squared away, and then once we have some extra, maybe we can send some.
There you
your
go.
way.
Nice.
Well, I'm honored to do it, but I'm more honored that we're involved with Crystal Lake Brewing. I got to thank Joe Rodriguez for that because, from day one, he got involved with Club 400, and he kind of led us in the direction of these guys. And
We got to get that guy on as a guest.
yeah, exactly.
You
Right
should
now,
have-
he's just sitting in the corner
you should
drinking
be here
beer. Yeah.
sometime.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, man. Oh,
Hi, hello.
But honestly, the partnership with CLB means the world to me. And as far as I'm concerned, Club 400 is definitely a group effort. And as far as what our goal is to raise $1 million for charity. And you guys are just as big a part of that as anybody. You guys have come here. You guys have donated beer. You guys have donated your time. And now we're taking it to the next level. And being that Ryan is behind the beer, it means something to me because, let's face it, Crystal Lake Brewery is definitely on the map now. And I would have to say that's probably thanks to Jesse's marketing skills and sales
Agreed.
skills, right?
Mhm.
Agreed.
And the distribution of it, I was at Benny's today. I picked up a couple 6-packs of it. And how hard was that to not to get off the Club 400 beer, but, starting a brewery is one thing, but being able to, get distribution, Jesse, how hard was that for you to get this stuff in the stores? And I mean, because that's when you guys took it to the next level. It wasn't just patrons coming in, having a beer, but you guys actually are now Crystal Lake Brewery is known around this area.
He called Joe Madden and got into Benny's. It
Yeah.
was easy.
I got a guy. It's my good buddy Joe. Oh, hi Joe. No, I mean, there's kind of two directions that a small brewery of our size, especially at the beginning, can take. We can either self-distribute the beer, which means me and somebody else, hopefully, getting in a panel van and dropping it off at places, or working with a distributor. And we got really, really lucky with the distributor that we work with in McHenry County. I mean, Herdrick, Chaz Herdrick and Son, who's the local distributor in McHenry County, they were kind enough to pick us up way back when we made like tens of barrels of beer. And, it was through their efforts, Joe Rod, Rob, Rich, those guys out there have done nothing but right by us. Honestly, like, we're only 2 people or 3 people. They have an entire team of people that go out there every day and pound the pavement and are preaching the good word, so to speak, about Crystal Lake Brewing. And that can, no joke, make or break a brewery. If you get put at the bottom of the pile, you're pretty much done. And they have done nothing but right by us. And then, I mean, from that perspective, I mean, we're out there. I mean, we do stuff like with you guys, and we do stuff with Lakeside Fest in Crystal Lake, which is coming up, and we do.
You do stuff at bars. You're everywhere around
Yeah,
here.
I mean, we
It's fantastic.
it's we don't. It's one of the all-time worst, and I think Ryan may have thrown this out there at an interview or something like that, but I heard it from him. You never say the beer sells itself, because it doesn't. It takes work. There's certainly no shortage of options, and we constantly have to be beating the door down and saying, hey, we're over here. It's delicious. It's aggressively priced. We can get it to you reliably, which sounds like, duh, but being able to work with guys like that work at Herdrick and our other distributors in Northern Illinois, I mean, that's a huge weight off of our shoulders, as opposed to me schlepping it around in a van. Not exactly keg worthy. I'm not throwing half barrels on my shoulders.
Right.
That's for sure.
So does
Right.
Yeah.
in your market, does competition, is that good? like there's new places popping up. There's a couple new ones in Huntley and a couple. I personally think it's good.
Yeah,
for you guys.
I think it is. Ultimately, it's good. I mean, it was us and 2 other breweries in McHenry County for the last 4 years, and now all of a sudden there's a bunch of them opening up, which is cool. And ultimately, I think it's a good thing. I think that it raises more awareness for breweries that are like us, and it brings anything that brings people into our local community, whether it's Crystal Lake or McHenry County. I think that is ultimately a good thing, as long as they're making quality beer, because the opposite can be true too. If somebody's experience is not necessarily with us, if it's with somebody else and the beer is not good, and maybe that was the first craft beer that they tried, they go, screw it, I don't want any part of this. I'll go back to what I was drinking before. That's not as good.
Well, I was at one of the new places in Huntley, and I feel like I cheated a little bit, but I heard people talking, and they were comparing what they were drinking there to your thing, and it was not as good as Crystal Lake Brewery, was what I heard. I wish I had my recorder on.
They're awesome.
Like, that's good.
Those folks in Huntley are awesome. They're friends of ours, and we've known them for a long time. And everybody makes different beer to their taste. We joke in the brewery that we brew it the way we do because we drink most of it. So, and that's kind of tongue in cheek, but yeah, we drink a lot of beer over there. But everybody has a different idea of what a pale ale tastes like, or what a lager will taste like, or what a stout will taste like, and it's personal preference.
But that's kind of the beauty of beer, though, isn't it?
It is.
That everybody has their own taste, and it's like trying to find
there
the
is
one.
something for everybody. You just have to find it. It's out there.
Have you guys ever did any collaborations with other breweries, or?
Yeah, we did. Was it 2 years ago? We went out to Heretic.
Yeah, it was about 2 years.
Heretic is a big West Coast brewery. They're in California, and Jamal is the guy's name. Jamil, sorry, is the guy's name, and he is with another one of our distributors, and happened to be in town, and they brought him to Crystal Lake. And this guy's a legend in the brewing world. He's been around forever, and he's older than me, which is hard to believe. So he came out, and we got to talking, and he enjoyed our beers, and he brought a bunch of his beers, and we enjoyed them as well. And just on the offhand chance he was into it, I asked if he would be willing to do a collaboration. Part of it was because I wanted to go to California with Jesse, and
you did get to travel.
I did.
Yeah,
I
I
did.
travel.
The guy has just been on 3 vacations.
I feel a little bit better.
It's all over the place. Tennessee.
It was just a little bit earlier.
What did you guys do after
Go do the hops.
you did the collaboration? What did you guys get to do?
We got to go to Sierra Nevada, the mothership.
Okay.
So that beer that's my number one. That was my first real craft beer experience, was Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
So Jesse, for the listeners, tell us, give us the pertinent information, the website, give us the address again, and you got a couple events coming up this summer. You guys do 2 big events at the brewery usually, and I think you got one coming up soon, don't you?
We do, yeah. So the mundane stuff, we're right in downtown Crystal Lake, 150 North Main Street. If you happen to take the train line out, you can take that UP Northwest line. You hop off the train, you go a block north, you are at the brewery, and then you can stumble back to the train. Oh, that sounds so good.
Fox Rocker!
Fox Rocker! May they rest in peace. And then, website is crystallakebrew.com. Instagram, Facebook, Crystal Lake Brewing. So you can kind of see what's going on all those platforms and whatnot. This year we changed up a format a little bit. So we used to do an event in the spring and then again in the fall. But since we are going to have our 5th year anniversary, we're going to move that event that we usually do in the spring to August. So we're doing a 5-year anniversary party in the early part of August, and then we have our big old Oktoberfest in early September. So we're pretty jacked about that, and then we're all over the place. Like the biggest single event we do pretty much the entire year is Lakeside Fest in Crystal Lake, in the shadow of the Dole Mansion, and
Which it starts this week because this episode is
Thursday.
airing. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this was a perfect episode to do on July 4th weekend. And, stop out to the Lakeside Fest. Go see these guys. They're going to have a booth there, and they're going to be serving fresh beer. Nothing but the best beer.
Made about a quarter mile away.
I'll tell you what, if you ever get a chance, go visit these guys. Go check the brewery out. It really does. You walk in there, and it feels like a family. This is not a big corporate place. This is a family. And that's the way I walked in there, and it feels everybody's friendly. Everybody's happy. But of course they are. They're making beer, and they're drinking beer all day long. When we made Club 400 beer, I had my first beer at 9:30 in the morning.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Which-
I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, was a little late for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
We assume he had a little Irish coffee before he got to the brewery.
And these guys are doing really good. They're bringing in food trucks, various food trucks that you can find out all your events basically on the website pretty much. And
Or the new app.
Yeah, we John just developed a brand new app that's available on the App Store. So it's the CLB Craft Crew. So it's basically like a shrunk down version of our website that has taproom events, outside events, beer news, all that good stuff.
Nice.
Club 400, the lager is coming July 18th. I can't be more excited. Let's give it up for the two guys that make it happen. They're sitting right. Well, let's say Joe actually kind of makes it happen too. Joe Rodriguez.
What about you?
Oh, well.
Let's give it up for Stu.
No, these guys are great. It's Ryan Clooney, the Brewmaster, and Jesse Abel. Thanks for coming out to Club 400. We will see you guys on the 18th, but I got one final question because I've been wanting to know this question forever. What the hell does fully Kreuzen mean?
I love it.
I know who's going to know.
Every beer is fully Kreuzen, so I would hope so. Most beers are fully Kreuzen. So when you're fermenting a beer, there's two definitions of Kreuzen. So when you're fermenting a beer, the foam that comes up on top when it's fermenting is Kreuzen. It's yeast and protein and different things that foam up in the beer. So that's Kreuzen. So every beer goes through that. And then Kreuzening is when you add unfermented beer back to beer that's finished fermenting, and that unfermented beer, the yeast in that beer that is finished fermenting reacts with that sugar and naturally carbonates the beer. So
Damn old styles, but I thought that was just old style for crying out loud.
It's the greatest beer. I love old style. You know that.
I had one the other night
Yeah.
at the yard.
All right. We're going to end this podcast like this. I'm going to put you on the spot. What is your favorite song about beer? And we're going to end with that song on this podcast.
It's probably my favorite song about beer is Beer Run by the, it's a group, it's a polka band out of Wisconsin. I can't think of the name of it. We're on the beer run. It's just so great.
Was John Candy
And they name a bunch of Wisconsin towns. The Polkaholics, that's their
The
name.
Polkaholics.
Yeah.
All right, we'll find
Beer
it.
Run by the Polkaholics.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
Yeah.
Mom, we talked about beer the whole entire time. Sorry about that. CLB, Crystal Lake Brewery, July 18th. Check for Club 400 beer in your local supermarket.
If
Only
there's-
a few places.
If there's any left after the
exactly.
party. Hopefully
And
there
look
is.
for announcements for our beer tasting parties at a couple of local bars, including Crystal Lake Brewery, where you'll be able to meet Jesse and Ryan. And thanks for coming on, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us,
Thanks for
guys.
having us.
Appreciate it.